So I want you to take a look at these scenes I'm gonna present to you. So let's start with the first one, which is from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Take a good look at it, so that you have it in your mind. So the next one, we're gonna move on to Elden Ring, which is this beautiful environment. And last but not least, I want to show you a clip from Neon Genesis Evangelion, the opening to be specific. Okay, so did you see anything similar between those scenes I have presented to you? Yeah, you're right. Those tree-like figures, branches, reaching up, roots diving down, the same cosmic silhouettes haunting three completely different worlds. And the first time I saw this tree-like figure back when I was watching Fullmetal Alchemist, I thought it was really unique to the anime itself, some secret lore symbol that belonged only to that world itself. And if I'd stopped there, I probably would have chalked it up as one of those cool anime mysteries and moved on. But as I grew older along my teenage years, watching some more things, playing some more games, and it really kept reappearing actually. That same divine geometry, that same haunting pattern. And that's when actually it really started to bother me. Like, where did it come from, and why do why does it like really reappear in a lot of franchises and media? And really, eventually, that curiosity began to stack in my tiny heart, and it became so much that it became a really an itch I couldn't ignore. So yeah, Pandora's box became so big that I couldn't restrain myself from it, and after days of second guessing whether it would make me seem like some guy who never goes outside, I gave in and started to dig in, because the more I searched, the clearer it became. This wasn't just some cool recurring visual that's used in a lot of media, which is absolutely not. It was a pattern that's followed humanity for over 1,000 years, and what you're seeing is one of the oldest blueprints, the Tree of Life. It's been drawn, redrawn, and whispered about across centuries. Philosophers, mystics, scientists, all trying to map the same impossible thing: how everything connects, from the divine above to material below, and every dangerous idea that dares bridge the gap. Most creators use it for, aesthetics and mood. In Evangelion, it's an omen, a quiet backdrop to extinction, flashing behind secret councils and world-ending prophecies. In Elden Ring, it becomes a worship incarnate, the Erdtree, radiant and holy, decaying from within. But in Fullmetal Alchemist, it's not just a decoration on the Gate of Truth. It's the operating system of the universe, because the Gate of Truth that Edward opens, that endless white void carved with those same branching paths, is the Tree of Life. You see those circles and lines and symbols that were etched into those doors. It's pulled directly from real alchemical manuscript, the same ones that obsessed medieval scholars and mystics who believed knowledge itself could make them divine. Both the 23 Fullmetal Alchemist anime and the Fullmetal Brotherhood, which follows actually the original manga more closely, begin with the same premise. Young alchemist brothers, Edward and Alphonse Elric, after a tragic alchemical accidents, they seek the Philosopher's Stone to restore their bodies. However, the two series diverge significantly in plot and myths. Yeah, I think it's myths in their second halves, offering an interesting contrast in the use of alchemical lore. The Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood one follows Hiromu Arakawa's manga closely. The primary antagonist is Father, a centuries-old homunculus who created the first Philosopher's Stone by sacrificing an entire city, which is the kingdom of Xerxes. I don't know if you pronounce the X with a Z or actually with the X. But this kingdom Father and his homunculi orchestrate a nationwide conspiracy in Amestris to create an even larger Philosopher's Stone, essentially using an entire country's population in a grand alchemical ritual. Alchemy in Brotherhood is deeply tied to this lore. For example, the homunculi embody the seven deadly sins and were each created via fragments of Father's own Philosopher's Stone. The story's climax revolves around mystical events like solar eclipses and a gate of truth, like I talked about earlier in the video, rooting the fantastical events in alchemical symbol and equivalent exchange. Most important thing is that once Edward and Alphonse learn that Philosopher's Stones are made by sacrificing human lives, their moral principles compel them to abandon using the stone as a solution, which is a theme of choosing human integrity over unlimited power. You know, the original anime diverged into an original storyline midway. Here the villain is Dante, an immortal alchemist who, along with Edward's father Hohenheim, created a Philosopher's Stone centuries ago and used it to prolong. So what they did was they were transferring souls between bodies, and that stone eventually deteriorated, and Dante seeks to create a new stone. The 23 series introduces concepts like red water and red stones, imperfect precursors to the Philosopher's Stone, and even connects the Gate of Alchemy to our real world in a WW1 era parallel universe. The homunculi in this version are the byproducts of human transmutation attempts rather than Father's offspring. But despite the differences, both versions stress the human cost and moral taboos of seeking the Philosopher's Stone, whether it's the genocide of an entire clan, city, or nation, or the gruesome experiments in Laboratory 5, which is in the 23 anime. The message is clear, and the ancient dream of alchemy, obtaining miraculous power and defying natural law, comes at an enormous ethical price. So originally I really wanted to keep it at a 20-minute max video, so I'm running out of time a little bit, but I hope we can squeeze as much information in this 20-minute video, and if not, we're gonna make a part 2. So y'all don't have to worry. Anyway, let's take a look at this painting from Joseph Wright of Derby's, which is painted in 1771, and the title is The Alchemist. It portrays an alchemistic praying fervently for the miraculous discovery of the Philosopher's Stone, a legendary goal of real-world alchemy. In historical alchemical lore, the Philosopher's Stone, sometimes called the Great Elixir or Sage Stone, was a mythic substance said to transmute base metals into precious gold and even grant immortality. For centuries, it was the most sought after goal in alchemy, symbolizing the perfection and divine enlightenment, the culmination of alchemists' magnum opus or great work. Alchemists gave it lofty epithets like celestial stone, elixir of life, or red tincture, reflecting the breadth of powers it was believed to possess. And in some traditions, the stone was less a literal material and more a metaphor for spiritual purification and ultimate knowledge. Fullmetal Alchemist takes the idea of Philosopher's Stone and makes it a literal physical object, an alchemic amplifier or tremendous power, while also revealing a dark twist behind its creation. And in both Fullmetal Alchemist continuities, the stone allows alchemists to perform feats that violate the normal laws of alchemy, such as bypassing equivalent exchange to perform transmutations without equal sacrifice. However, unlike the benevolent miracle substance of legend, Fullmetal Alchemist's Philosopher's Stone carries a horrific cost. It is created from human lives. In Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, we learn that the first true Philosopher's Stone was created by Father, the enigmatic homunculus, by sacrificing the entire population of Circes in a single night. And this genocidal transmutation distilled the souls of tens of thousands of people into a single stone, literally forging power from human life. Later, during the Ishvalan Civil War, the homunculi coerced Dr. Tim Marco and other state alchemists to attempt making new stones from Ishvalan prisoners, a secret war atrocity that produced only incomplete stones. And when Edward and Alphonse finally uncover these truths, it cements the show's ethical stance. Such an abomination is too high of a price. As the Fullmetal Alchemist wiki notes, morality is largely the only thing preventing the creation of a Philosopher's Stone, since Edward and Alphonse refused to pursue it further after learning it's made by, killing humans. And the stone in Brotherhood thus becomes a symbol of forbidden knowledge, the ultimate alchemical achievement tainted by ultimate sin. But in the 23 Fullmetal Alchemist, the exact mechanics differ, but the theme is similar. The secret journals of Dante and Hohenheim reveal they succeeded in creating a Philosopher's Stone around 400 years ago using methods that cost many lives. That stone granted them near immortality by allowing their souls to hop, like I said earlier in the video, if you remember. By the way, I don't know if it's a good idea to wear a green sweater, but anyway, in other words, Fullmetal Alchemist isn't just throwing, random occult symbols around. The Tree of Life on Edward's Gate signals that this journey for knowledge is a spiritual quest. It connects the mundane to the divine, much as Edward must learn that all is one and one is all. A core theme meaning everything in the universe is connected. And the very fact that only Edward's Gate shows the Sephiroth while other characters' gates display different alchemical engravings highlights that this symbol resonates with his personal path. And if there were any doubt that the show intentionally drew from Kabbalah, fans have pointed out that the word Adonai, which is Hebrew for Lord, a name of God, is literally inscribed in the diagram on Edward's Gate. A clue that attaining ultimate knowledge in Fullmetal Alchemist is akin to reaching towards godhood. At the threshold of this gate resides the mysterious character, Truth. When Edward or others are pulled into the wide expanse behind the gate, they encounter a featureless entity, often depicted as a blank, glowing silhouette of themselves. Truth famously introduces itself with the famous line that, like he says, one name you might have for me is the world or the universe or perhaps God. And then he proceeds to say that I am all and I am one. So of course this also means I am you. That's what he says in the series. And in short, Truth is the personification of the universe, spiritual and moral law. It judges those who dare to, play kind of like the creator with alchemy. For example, when Edward and Alphonse commit the ultimate taboo, which is human transmutation, when they try to resurrect their mother, it is Truth who exacts the price, taking Edward's leg and Alphonse's entire body as payment. Symbolically, Truth ensures the law of equivalent exchange isn't really violated. You cannot gain limitless knowledge or power without sacrifice. And so, because of that, this entity can be seen as Fullmetal Alchemist's version of a higher gatekeeper. It's not really evil or good per se, but kind of neutral and vengeful in a karmic sense. A force that keeps human ambition in check. Many interpret Truth as akin to the concept of a higher divine entity or a collective consciousness in the Fullmetal Alchemist universe. In fact, within the gate's void, there is a gigantic eye and a mass of dark tendrils that drags the transgressor through, reinforcing that crossing this threshold means confronting a higher power. And the show's lore even implies that some infinite knowledge exists beyond the gate, and what the alchemist experiences is a brush with that omniscience. And it's telling that after these encounters, characters like Edward gain some enlightenment. He learns how to perform transmutation without drawing circles, but they also suffer loss. A nod to the old alchemical idea that enlightenment really has a price. And in a beautiful bit of thematic closure, Edward ultimately surrenders his Gate of Truth entirely, and with it, his alchemy powers. And as a sacrifice to bring back his brother's body by literally closing off his access to, infinite knowledge. Edward affirms that human truth like love, family, and the value of a life means more to him than absolute power. And this resolution drives home Fullmetal Alchemist's point. The true wisdom requires humility and human connection, not just peering into, the heavens. All these elements underscore how Fullmetal Alchemist uses religious and mystical symbolism with deliberate purpose. As one analysis noted, that Fullmetal Alchemist mythology has a closer tie to its religious symbolism than a show like Neon Genesis Evangelion. In Fullmetal Alchemist, real occult concepts like the Tree of Life, the Flamel Cross, or also the Seven Deadly Sins are tightly woven into the plot itself. And Arakawa never beats the audience over the head with its lectures on Kabbalah or alchemy history, but the consistency is really there for fans to find. In the words of one fan, Fullmetal Alchemist's use of such symbols is internally consistent, far more than just a stylistic flourish. And by the time Edward and Alphonse's story concludes, viewers can really appreciate that things like the Gate of Truth or the Philosopher's Stone weren't just cool sounding props, but they were reflection of the story's theme, which are the pursuit of knowledge, the unity of all beings, and the balance between human ambition and morality. And if there's still any doubt about what the Tree of Life and the Gate of Truth represent in Fullmetal Alchemist, there's one quiet scene between Edward and Alphonse that ties it all together. Where they were on a quest, trying to figure out what their teacher meant with one is all and all is one, and Alphonse ask Edward, have you figured out what the teacher meant by one is all and all is one? And then Edward explains it to him with I ate ants to survive, and if I died, the ants and other animals would have eaten me, and I would go into the earth, become grass, and the rabbits would eat that. And round it goes. Means seeing yourself not as the center of the universe, but as one link in its endless chain. And the Gate of Truth represents forbidden knowledge. The tree carved into it shows the shape of that knowledge. And this scene, it shows the humility required to carry it. And that's what sets the Fullmetal Alchemist apart. It doesn't just name drop esoteric symbols, it gives them emotional weight. It lets two brothers sitting in the dirt stumble into metaphysics and come out with a better understanding of who they are and who they're not. And now, to see how a very different series use some of the same symbols, but for a completely different reason, let's look at Neon Genesis Evangelion. While Fullmetal Alchemist embeds symbolism deeply into its plot mechanics, Neon Genesis Evangelion, which came out in 1995, provides a useful counterpoint. Evangelion is famous for using extensive religious and mystical imagery like crosses, angles, Kabbalistic symbols, etc., but largely for aesthetic and thematic flavor rather than literal in-story lore. Let's examine that and how it actually compares to Fullmetal Alchemist. You know the clip I showed you in the beginning? The Evangelion's opening? Well, it credits rapidly and flashes a number of cryptic diagrams and references, among them the Tree of Life, the same Sephiroth diagram we discussed earlier. The Tree of Life also appears during the instrumentality scenes in End of Evangelion, which came out in 1997, as a visualization when humanity's souls unite. However, within the Evangelion narrative, no character ever explains or explicitly references the Tree of Life. It's part of the show's dense symbolic imagery that eagle-eyed viewers might notice, but the plot doesn't overly revolve around it. An audience member unfamiliar with the Kabbalah would simply see a mysterious tree-like diagram with Hebrew and Latin on it. But those familiar with it, however, recognize it and might infer themes. For instance, the Tree of Life could be interpreted as representing the humanity of all human souls, or the merging of humanity with the divine, which is essentially what the Human Instrumentality Project seeks. As one fan Q&A response explains, that is the Kabbalah Tree of Life, a symbol used to represent an attempt to understand and unify the connections between various concepts of life and the universe. This indeed resonates with Evangelion's climax, where individual ego boundaries are dissolved into a single existence. Yet, it is important to note that this interpretation is left to the viewer. The show itself never spells it really out for you. It doesn't really explain it explicitly. Neon Genesis Evangelion's broader use of religious symbolism is famously somewhat skin deep. The creators have admitted that they chose these symbols primarily for the exotic and mysterious atmosphere they would evoke rather than to convey a specific theological message. Kazuya Tsurumaki, assistant director of Evangelion, stated in an interview that the team had added religious themes to set the show apart because, and I quote, Christianity is an uncommon religion in Japan, and we thought it would be mysterious. None of these staff who worked on Evangelion are Christians, and there is no actual Christian meaning to the show. We just thought the visual symbols of Christianity looked cool. Also, Hideaki Anno, which is the Neon Genesis Evangelion's director, has similarly mentioned that the religious imagery was chosen in part because it seemed profound and unfamiliar, not because Evangelion was intended as a religious commentary. In fact, he was reportedly surprised that the Western audiences took the Christian symbolism so seriously. And this doesn't mean that the symbolism in Evangelion is entirely random. It still creates a powerful motive system that reinforces some of the show's themes, like isolation, apocalypse, and rebirth. For instance, every time an angel is destroyed, it explodes in a cruciform blast of light, visually tying the series' violent battles to religious imagery of sacrifice. The term Evangelion itself means gospel in Greek, and the series in rife with apocalyptic references from the Book of Revelation. And these elements give Evangelion a grand operatic tone, fighting giant angels with the spear of Longinus, etc., which really elevates the mecha genre to something that feels like it's about the fate of mankind's soul, not just physical survival. And the SEAL organization in the story uses occult and Kabbalistic imagery. Their logo is a stylized tree of life, suggesting they fancy themselves as orchestrators of a godlike plan. But if you dig into Evangelion's actual plot mechanics, the Judeo-Christian bits could mostly be swapped out for techno-babble without fundamentally changing the story. They are there to imbue a sense of mystique and depth. As one observer noted, Evangelion's religious symbolism is mostly to look cool, kind of elaborate window dressing that invites audience to speculation. So, what's the point of all of this? Well, beyond me being someone who spiraled into researching 16th century alchemical diagrams, it's the fact that these symbols aren't just background noise. They stick around because they mean something, or at least they feel like they do. Some creators use them to build actual rules, like in Fullmetal Alchemist, where the Tree of Life literally structures the universe, where truth isn't just a character but a cosmic equation. Others, like Evangelion, use the same symbols to create mood, mystique, and a sense that something ancient and unknowable is lurking just under the surface. And yeah, I'll be honest, I haven't watched Neon Genesis Evangelion all the way through yet. I know, fake anime fan alert, but I've dug up through interviews, lore deep dives, wiki rabbit holes, fan theories, and analysis posts at 3 a.m. like a gremlin, just trying to understand how and why the same tree kept reappearing. And I've done my homework, even if I haven't met Shinji. I've met the symbols. So after all that digging, I gotta say, if you haven't watched Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, you're really missing out. I think it's the perfect anime. It has, good pacing, great characters, great battle system. It is a perfect anime to watch. Um, like seriously, it's one of the rare stories that actually rewards you for being curious, for pausing, zooming in, asking, what is that symbol? Every alchemy circle, every design choice, mythic reference, it's intentional. There's really a depth there if you want to find it. But even if you don't, even if you just want an epic story about two brothers trying to fix what they broke, it's still phenomenal. The kind of show that hits you in the gut and then lingers in your brain for years after. Because at the end of the day, Fullmetal Alchemist isn't really about only alchemy or anime magic. It's about the pursuit of meaning, even when it hurts, and sacrifice and morality, ethical. Yeah. It's about the understanding that knowledge costs something, and sometimes the deeper you look, the more you see yourself staring back at you. So whether you're here for the lore, the philosophy, or just to escape for a while, I'm really glad you made it to the end, and thank you so much for watching. If you like these type of videos, I know it has been really too long, and I've added things that weren't really relevant to the thumbnail and title. But if you like these type of videos, consider a subscribe. It would really help me out, and consider a like, maybe a comment. Did you miss out on something? Did you maybe find something for yourself that I didn't mention in the video? So that's all it from today. See ya. Bye bye.